So why do we need to spend hundreds of millions of pounds on a renovation when, in fact, there's a way to make our collection and our ideas available to everyone all the time without them coming here?
Because you need both. It's not a binary choice or a zero-sum game. As Mary Beard, one of my trustees, said, we're in the business of knowledge transfer, which is true. But of course, that's led by the collection that we hold, which is objects. It's the fact that more and more people want to come to visit the museum to see those objects in the flesh, in person.
I assume that you're just getting into the rather large fundraising process for your Western Range renovation. I'd love to hear your pitch, especially since this will rely on private donors. So let's say I'm a billionaire. Maybe I'm even an expat oligarch who's now living in London. Why should I contribute to this new master plan of yours for the British Museum?
I'd probably want to start by asking you, this hypothetical billionaire, your experience with the museum. Most people I talk to visited the museum when they were young and it left a big mark on them. And therefore, what it did for you, and if you believe that it could do maybe the same thing or more for other people, essentially the positive potential for this extraordinary collection, which, I mean, let's be clear, is arguably the greatest museum collection in the world. Complexity and controversy included, it is an incredible, incredible institution. The work it does, the research that it generates, the people it reaches, these are all inherently good things.
And let's say I'm a little bit of an empiricist and I say, that's all well and good, Nick, but what's the best evidence you can offer that cultural institutions help cause a society to thrive rather than cultural institutions being byproducts of a society that's already thriving and has enough money to spend on culture? In other words, what's your best evidence for the ROI on culture spending?
The honest answer would be just walking through the museum every day. I mean, even just going to the canteen to get my lunch. I was on the front desk last week. It's just seeing the people from all around the world that come into the museum, seeing the multi-generational visitors, including families, school groups especially. I mean, it's really amazing when you see 20, 30 school children from the UK or from abroad just having their horizons open. I don't need facts and figures. You walk around the museum and you see it happening every moment of the day.
I am generally skeptical of people who say they don't need facts and figures. Still, I have been finding Nicholas Cullinan's reasoning to be persuasive so far. Or maybe it's just that his enthusiasm is contagious. Coming up after the break, is the British Museum ready to give back some of its most treasured loot? I'm Stephen Dubner. This is Freakonomics Radio. We'll be right back.
At Kroger, we've lowered prices on over 1,000 items across our stores, so you can save even more. Whether you're shopping in-store or online at Kroger, you can always save with our lower prices. Kroger has lowered prices across the store on items like coffee, cheese, ice cream, paper towels, and even trash bags. And with Kroger's lower prices, your dollar goes further every time you shop with us. Kroger, fresh for everyone.
If your small business is booming, you might say, cha-ching, but you should say, like a good neighbor, State Farm is there, and we'll help your growing business. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
With over 40 years of trail innovation beneath our tread, Merrill has once again set the standard for hiking performance with the all-new Speed Arc Mattis, a next-gen sneaker designed to revolutionize your hiking experience. Featuring the first-ever Speed Arc midsole system, the Speed Arc Mattis combines high-performance energy return with dual layers of Float Pro foam cushioning, making every step feel as effortless as it is unstoppable. Discover the latest evolution in hiking innovation with Merrell's Speed Arc Mattis, now available at Merrell.com.
We're speaking today with Nicholas Cullinan, who became director of the British Museum in the summer of 2024. We first spoke in person at the museum in London, and then a few days later in a studio interview when I was back in New York. We'll pick up now with some conversation from that studio interview. This is the most cliched question ever, but I still find it a useful question. When you go to a museum and you could take home one object and keep it, what's your keeper from the British Museum?
In my final interview for the role of director last year, one of the final questions was to talk about an object. And the object I talked about was the Portland vase. an amazing Roman glass cameo vase that we have.
With a great history, we should say.
With a great history, and that's also kind of why I chose it, because I'm a big fan of Susan Sontag's novel The Volcano Lover, which is essentially a romantic novel around Lord Hamilton, who was the British ambassador to Naples, and the Portland vase makes quite a few important appearances in the book. Lord Hamilton sold it to the Duchess of Portland, and then her heirs put it on deposit at the British Museum. And in, I think it was 1845, a drunken visitor came in and smashed it into basically 1,000 pieces for no reason whatsoever. It was then painstakingly put back together by restorers, which is extraordinary. And then 100 years later, in 1945, just after the Second World War, just as the world was putting itself back together, and the British Museum too, because it was bombed, and there were whole galleries that had to be rebuilt. We actually acquired it. It was bought by the nation, and since then also been restored a second time. I found it very moving that things survive at all. First of all, it's kind of a miracle if you think about it. It's already been destroyed one time, and it's managed to be pieced back together.
It was pieced back together because it was destroyed within the confines of a museum.
Yeah, but it could have been destroyed before that. It could never have been found. It could still be in the ground. It could be in a private collection and no one would know about it. Just the fact that things are in museums at all is incredible when you actually think about it.
Well, you're making a rather compelling argument which comes at a different issue, which is the notion of repatriation. One of the primary arguments there is that museums, while they may be charged with possessing and showing materials that have been obtained in a variety of ways that are not so above board, a word you use is looted, which no previous director of the British Museum that I'm aware of has ever used. And when people call for repatriation, one argument against that is that if these objects had not been kept in museums in the past and continue to be kept in museums, then they might disappear into either a private holding or who knows where. I wonder if you might want to spend a little time talking about that at the moment as it pertains to works that the British Museum currently holds, whether it's Elgin marbles, whether it's Benin bronzes, etc., how that factors into your general thinking about repatriation. And I realize that was a large side door we just walked through, but I know you can handle it.
No, it's really interesting. I'll begin by saying, as you might have gathered, I'm not really a big fan of binary thinking. It only satisfies one party. And that's not a way of fustigating about the past.